to Secondary Science, Tuesday, September 23rd. We're in the Truman Building, and we're starting our PM session.
I don't have those.
Okay. And that breaks it down to physical science and chemistry or science.
Or do you think I have that one set up? I do not.
Okay. They were drafted in 2007. It's still a draft.
Wow.
What's still a draft? These? Really? Yeah, they're still a draft. They've never been formally approved. That's fine. State board, I don't think so, would approve these.
That takes time. It's only been 8 years, so yeah.
Because of testing and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Let's see how many don't have that copy.
Is there none over here?
Is there another?
There was
They
some.
might have brought, there's some more of them out,
Oh, did
but
they
yesterday
bring-
were brought
okay.
back, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let's see, are you looking for the
The draft one.
biology?
No, I need the one that says draft. Chris wants all of the other.
Yeah. I think you might be more
It's this one right here.
More co-counsel than.
Yeah, it's the science course level.
It's the high school.
It's the course level.
Oh,
Elizabeth.
they only did a couple of those, I think. for us.
Yeah.
Would we be able to get a couple more copies?
Course level.
If she has one, I think you should share. If she does, she does.
Just so that,
That's what my husband was calling me all last night, Chairman. Madam Vice Chair.
Oh, okay.
Was like, really? Please,
Right.
just back off.
So how many copies would you like?
well, I know I don't have one. Let's wait till everybody gets back in here real quick and make sure that, see who has it.
You're looking for biology?
Yeah, and if we're gonna, since we've got these for another couple of weeks, so everybody has one before they leave, I was asking about the rest of the high school.
Yeah, the draft, the one that says draft,
Yeah.
the other course.
I don't have one. I don't know who else has anything. So
I have a cold, but.
All right.
Yeah, Thursday and Friday.
Thursday and Friday.
Already? Yes.
That was not
Yeah,
homework
that was one of my lectures I went to.
They copied the wrong document.
I got it. Yeah.
65 pages.
And then we don't have it, so we don't know everything else. Right.
I hope once we get into this that you don't feel that way.
No.
That's a longer drive for you. I mean, I can get back in time. I can in 5 hours.
I really regret today because today,
I have service. I can.
You know, that's right. I thought you sound like an awesome teacher because you're the kind of teacher when I was in high school, I would have enjoyed it. I enjoy hands-on.
I've listened to both of you talk about how you were and did like this.
Yeah.
Guess what? All I gave you was some ideas. You had to make this your I give them problems they have to solve.
That's my one thing with when you're recording your performance expectations, it's different from the way this performance because the way they were talking about it is it tells you how you want to assess it. And to me, that's where the teacher ought to be.
Okay.
And that's the wording that I have to try to avoid. You know, not.
Wow. Okay.
Well, like, oh, yeah.
All right.
That one, you needed 5. It was telling us even how
Course level.
and that's
I have biology.
because then you're going to have to say,
I don't have the course.
The.
I know.
Like I have them digitally, so.
well, I have everything in
I don't like killing trees anymore.
I'm going to request
Then the color even worse.
Well, for something like this, where I'm actually working with it, I like to be able to spread it and.
I don't like bouncing back and forth.
And
I
I'm
like to make
scrolling
sure.
to find things, I'm like, I scribble too.
It's like you have to
I go back to the lab and I can blow it up on the screen. And I just, so I do a sit in the lab and just,
One of my professors, it was driving me nuts. One day I wrote down my last everything in the class. He had one of those big old chalkboard things that it was like slide up to the ceiling. And it was squeaked so bad.
Tony's right here. She's moved to the back so she can use her computer. Which I may end up doing. Yeah, we need power plugs out here. Okay, all right. I should have closed that one, but here we are.
oh, we're already getting started.
Yeah, we're taking a break. Okay, so I'm hoping Dennis is maybe just taking his bathroom break and we'll be in momentarily. And Chris has excused himself for another moment.
He's on his way back.
But he's on his way back. So, okay. So we have decided as a group that we are going to start with the end in mind. We're going to begin with the end in mind. I'm a lead. My daughter is doing Leader in Need because she's in preschool. We're going to begin with the end in mind. We are looking at what colleges are the minimum requirement, the baseline competency. I'm using all these words that we were throwing around. That entry-level courses for college would look at. So correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like we're looking at pages, starting on page 30 on the CAI progress report, because that starts with our scientific inquiry. When you go get specifically into life sciences, that's on page 32. We're in Appendix B, number 4. Not everybody has that. Yeah, and that's for sure. Is there an electronic copy of this that we can put up there?
No, and you have the only copies of.
Let's try. Here, there's not enough. We're going to have to share. We're going to have to get close, people. Act like you like one another.
Pretty sure. She got pretty sure.
Act like you like one another.
We're sharing here.
Okay.
We're sharing. I can share.
I can.
We like each other well enough.
Tony, do you have a copy of the CAI progress report? Okay.
So how many people don't have one?
There it is.
She's on the desktop, so no.
DAG.
You can share it. And I got a digital copy.
There we go. All right.
Can you make it bigger?
I could surely try.
Control.
Right.
What page you on there?
This is page 30. Can you guys see that? All right. That's that first page. I'm going to move my stuff up here. That way I can control the electronic version of me.
No. Kidding. Supposed to be.
Might get a drink. preparation in mathematics, encouraged to meet the entry-level standards prescribed for college math before enrolling in introductory college-level science course. So do we need to look at that?
Well, we're not doing, we're doing another group doing a work group.
There's another group. I just wanted to see what they were.
But what would you consider entry level? What would you consider
Entry level math?
It says with adequate preparation in math, so that would be up to what?
Algebra two. Minimum.
The math courses say incoming students are expected to know basic mathematical concepts in computation, algebra, and geometry. So that's algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2. So, okay, so those are our quantitative. Scientific inquiry, this is, as far as I am concerned, correct me if I'm wrong, or you think I am out of line, scientific inquiry, this part, the reason it's not just part of the life sciences is because scientific inquiry is going to be in all areas of science.
Not every year, it's an ongoing.
Right.
Starts third grade.
Babies do it.
Yeah.
They do.
But here's the thing. So when you write it like these were written, when whatever we decide, if you write scientific inquiry as its own set of standards, then it just kind of sticks out.
Right.
Teachers are more apt to teach
Scientific
inquiry.
method once.
Here is our unit, now we're done, and you never hear of it again.
Right.
Whereas it should be threaded throughout.
Well, it's like right here.
Exactly. So that's why that document is a little better document. The MTSS document is because it took those inquiry and engineering practices and put it in lots of different areas. So instead of just teaching this and then we never hear of it again, the kids should be using these skills all year long. Because as we talked about before, like when you learn to measure, where did you learn to measure? Did you actually learn to measure in school, or did you learn to measure at home when you were growing up because your mom cooked or sewed, or your dad worked on the car, or built stuff, or because you used it all the time. The more you use it, the better you are at the skill. The less likely we have to teach, how to measure volume, how to measure grams, how to measure, those things each and every year. We can just start switching to let's use it.
So, of these, there are quite a few things under here that are part of that scientific inquiry. Do we need to put, do we need to put some of those into those standards, or is that just something that everybody's going to automatically know that these are all the pieces of that?
I think if we put it in, when we go to write our performance expectations, if we are using some of this verbiage, then it will lend to using inquiry in the classroom all the time, and not just teaching the first chapter of scientific method at the beginning of the year.
These are not performance.
Right.
Okay.
Could you do both?
Have a set of scientific inquiry standards as well as incorporate them in.
Yeah.
Why?
That's what we've been doing all along.
In chemistry, the thing that most people hate is significant digits. It's the one that kills them. But if you don't teach significant digits as a unit, but all semester, every time they make a measurement, you say, how many significant digits did you have? By the end of the course, they're telling me before I ask them. They know how many significant digits they have, and they know through the calculations. So if you make it separate, early in my academic career, I heard someone speak about how as students go through, especially in the system that we currently utilize, and we teach them English, and they put it in the English bucket, and they set that in their locker, and they get out their math bucket, and then they get out their science bucket. And so then the same thing happens in the science classroom. They get out their science inquiry bucket. Okay, I'm all done with that. I put it up. And the instructors, who weren't all as well prepared as others, do the same thing. They don't model the science inquiry language when they're leading their students. And so by blending it together, I'm helping the instructor consistently practice because it's there. And I'm not saying it's just a separate thing you learn once and then forget, but that you keep using it and practicing it. So my suggestion would be not to pull it off and put it as a standalone, but to have it woven into the fabric.
Well, I guess I got that point. What I guess I was asking was, it's like a primer almost, for lack of a better phrase. So you learn how the scientific inquiry methodology works, and that's a bucket. But that's woven into every other class that you have. It's like learning nouns and verbs and adjectives. Well, those are one through everything else you do.
If you look up a guy who wrote an article in the mid-90s, McComas, I'm misenunciating, and he said, he wrote about the myths of science, and one of the myths is that there's a scientific method, and there's not. Scientists approach their problems the same way that all the groups are approaching. How many groups do we have, and how many different approaches do we have going on right now? I mean, there is no singular, but what is consistent is that science is observation-based. And so I want them to develop this idea that I collect observations, and from the observations I develop a hypothesis. I don't make a wild guess first and then go collect observations.
Which playing off of what he said here, is what I believe is one of the downfalls of the NGSS is they did a great job weaving those science practices through all the content. Perfect. And then for whatever odd reason, they put that engineering standard in there that is
should have been woven.
That should have just been left woven because that's what they did with the inquiry. They put it throughout, which was great. And now they put that engineering standard and it just sticks out like this, you know. And they should have just left it in there, you know, left it tucked in there and because if not, once again, you're going to get, okay, we're doing engineering.
Okay, so
Right.
here's a
But I guess
question.
here's where I'm sorry, just let me get this, because I'm not being belligerent, I guess I don't get it. So I'm in my first science class, okay, whatever that is. And we're going to talk about gathering observations. So I don't know that going in, you're going to have to teach that to me.
You know that going in. You knew that shortly after you started walking, or perhaps even before you started walking. I'm going to move it from
But
the
in
back.
a formalized.
I'm going to bring it to the frontal lobe. But as an educator, if the first thing I do is hit you with a hammer, then you're going to be afraid of the hammer. You're not really going to realize that you drive nails with it. And so if I just come in and say, okay, we're going to learn about observations, all of a sudden I think it's something different than what I've been doing the last 8 years. The first thing I do at college level is show them that they came in already knowing a lot about chemistry. What's H2O? Water. Excellent. What's the two-state? Oh, there's two hydrogens. And that's for my worst students. But when I come in and say, okay, we're going to learn chemical formulas, all of a sudden they don't get it.
But I mean, is this the same though?
I guess the reason I'm here is that I want to help us develop things that empower both the learner and their instructor and the board who's providing the oversight. And it is the same thing, but it's different.
It starts getting viewed differently.
Well, the question that I have is, okay, if
It's
you're
sort of
gonna-
like your polling comment.
if you're going to do like an experiment and you're going to have constants and variables and things, okay, at some point, a teacher somewhere is going to have to teach them what a constant and a variable is.
Correct.
And so, how does the teacher know that's already been taught, or I need to teach that?
Because when you, going back to the NGSS document, when you look at that, and it says design an experiment to, we'll say, test the solubility of water. I'm just throwing a thing out there. Okay, so when I mouse over that design the experiment, it pops up, scientific practice, and it tells me what practices they're doing, and I can look at that and see what my students are supposed to be able to do with those skills. And then through conversation, through pre-testing, through whatever it is that I have done with those kids, I can figure out where they are and what kind of information they need in order to be able to do that performance. So while I'm teaching content, I'm adding in the skill set that they need.
And it's often referred to in the business industry as just-in-time teaching. So you've done an experiment. Kimberly's experiments ran really well, but you've done one that didn't work so good. And I said, well, what do you think was wrong? And you start going on. what were the possible variables in the experiment? And so then I can talk with you about that and help you see what was going on, and that maybe you overlooked the fact that tap water already has ions, which interferes with I'm trying to avoid getting specifics, but when you start separating things out, you go back to this idea that they're separated from one another. And that's the same thing that you'll see with almost all these documents. We have a strand that goes from first grade to 12th grade. And a lot of the things seem like they're repetitive, and it's because some things need to be polished and buffed and put back on the shelf and then pulled back off and used. And it's the same thing with the science inquiry.
So the teacher's just going
Everything
to have
has
to
a
figure out
label.
themselves that, hey, I need to teach this.
Because it's very dependent on what your students already know. Some school districts, like, I know when kids come to me with the one 7th grade teacher that left last year was there. I knew when kids come to me in 8th grade, they knew what a hypothesis was, and knew what an independent variable and dependent variable was. They knew it. I would do a quick check, and there might be a little polishing that needs to be done. And all I do is I'm talking to the kids, I'm getting their ideas, and I'm like, okay, let's do a little CPR here. Remember this word, variable. And so we kind of get that knowledge base up, and then we start using it from there. So it just depends on where you are and what the kids have come with.
And if we keep it interwoven, we are going to improve this conciseness that we've been talking about also. And that we won't end up with all these this feeling of being overwhelmed with all these different number of topics you're supposed to cover, when in reality a lot of those topics are intermeshed with one another, are repeated from the first day you start school until you graduate. And it kind of helps keep it a concise, tight window. And so by describing the performance standard and what a good learner can do, what grading rubrics, if you will, that's where the instructor realizes, okay, these students maybe, unlike last year students came to me and were really powerful. I could move to new areas of their education. These students are in need of a little extra attention on this particular one.
Okay, so you realize that when I said both, I didn't mean to not do integration.
Yes.
Okay, so then my second thing is I get maybe not doing a separate bucket on this at this level. Then is this something that we make note of and communicate with the other group that this is something that they should make sure is woven in varying degrees as
if
they move
they
up?
bring it to us as a separate one, I would like to suggest that they look at having it interwoven.
I mean, where I'm going with that, does that make sense?
Yes, I understand it, and my response would be if they're committing, their work group's going to come up with their own product, but when we go to try and integrate the two, my suggestion would be, have you considered not having that a standalone expectation?
Just for information purposes, the CLE, since we're in this one, the CLE actually has strand 7 is scientific inquiry, and going through this and comparing it to this college, it's No, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying, I think we just may have found one area that we could trim some fat. Because if we're wanting to try to integrate this where it's more streamlined, what I was also going to say was that when it comes to, if it's in here like this and it's in here like this, I'm actually right now, I'm just kind of jotting notes. I feel it's going to be important to, as we go through the other standards, just kind of make note of, okay, this is a standard that can be looked at quantitatively, or this is a standard that we use scientifically. And there's going to be most of them are going to be, and I'm sure there's going to be some that are, don't always have scientific inquiry when it comes to some of the biology and stuff. It's
And I'm certain the State Board of Education, if we can prove to them that we have that inquiry standard woven throughout, they're not gonna be too mad about taking more money as compared to that.
Exactly. And that's,
Well, we wouldn't be taking away, we just
Well,
cross-reference
instead of,
where it's included.
what I'm referring to is the placemat. And
Right.
so 7 is the inquiry, 8 is the science and technology. And if we can take those two and show how they're rolling throughout, we can pull those off of there and then show 6, but have the other two doing what they should be doing all along. And it's a visual thing, because if I see it separate, then I think I may have to teach it separate.
so should we move on? So I think we should continue to go through at least what is
So the next,
anything that,
the next page would be page 32. If we get rid of, if we're skipping scientific inquiry for the time being, saying we're going to interweave. Number page 32, I'll get that page up. Okay, life sciences. The purpose of high school biology is to help students develop a foundation in biology that focuses on major themes in the discipline and to help them become scientifically literate citizens. So, towards this end, we encourage emphasis to be placed on why biological processes, e.g. mitosis, photosynthesis, respiration, etc., are important, and less emphasis be placed on the details of these processes. They also encourage a shift in the emphasis from cell and molecular biology to a more balanced approach that includes organismal, evolutionary, and ecological biology. So
more on cells, more on micro, less on macro?
no, it's the other way around. More on macro, less on micro.
Okay, all right.
So macro is
Ecology.
not scientific. It's not scientific. Macro evolution cannot be observed because it was observed when nobody was here.
But we're talking about macro being, it's not just talking about cells and cell parts. We're talking about ecological systems and how they interact. That's considered macrobiology as well. Predator-prey relationships, that's macrobiology. So there's more to it than just getting hung up on the evolutionary part of it.
That's something that really doesn't need to be that hard. It probably could be done without. I mean, if there is evolution, the difference between those, the macro and micro, needs to be understood. But probably that beyond that, the micro can be observed and understood.
And they're not taking micro completely out. They're just saying they would prefer to be focused on things that have to do with the organism itself and with its interactions in ecology.
It seemed like lately a lot of the books that our kids had, even at upper elementary, they were focusing so much on microscopic parts of cells and big old fancy long words that I didn't have all through high school, and they're having them like in 5th grade, and they started really focusing on this, and they don't really enjoy that anyway, and so they're like, oh, we're doing this again. But it just seemed that they started focusing on things that really weren't that applicable to them, and the bigger things they can see an animal, they can see
How
an
many people have made
environment.
an edible cell, but then what does that really say about this? What does it teach you about a cell? And I just,
It's fun and they taste good.
it's fun and it tastes good.
Depending on what they
Especially
get.
bringing the cake ones.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, what I think, they're saying the biology kids should learn should be the biology that they can see.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Sorry, say that again?
The biology kids should be learning is the biology they can see. The organisms go outside, the environment, the predator-prey relationships.
Yeah, that's what they're
The
saying.
impact of bacteria,
In it, yeah, you know,
the
you
role
have
of medicine.
why diversity is
Oh,
important.
bumblebee.
Yeah.
You know, the bigger stuff, instead of forcing kids to remember cell parts, the flower parts, the steps through meiosis that drives everybody nuts, you know, that they never remembered, which their mother, or my boys would tell you, I tell them, that as long as you got one of these, Google it, you can tell me if they're wrong, you know.
Well, if you look in, then they're saying they would like us to focus more on the macro side. If you look on page 33, it tells you what of the micro, like I'm just looking at cells, since we're talking about cells, it tells you what they want you to, what they would like to see. And they're the basic parts of the cells. You know, what's the difference between unicellular and multicellular? Plasma membrane, cell wall, cytoplasm, nucleus, chloroplast, mitochondria, and ribosome. It does not include lysosome and Golgi body and, you know,
The bigger picture.
yeah. So you're looking at, and then it talks about cell specialization, how there are different cells that do different things. Yeah.
They have in micro, they also have DNA.
Yeah. But you think that's doesn't have anything about what hereditary or inherited traits are.
We teach photosynthesis, but we don't get into the ATP process.
So what we're gonna do now is looking like starting on page 32, where it starts with key properties and principles of matter and energy. We're gonna start looking at that and taking that into basic biology. Is that correct?
Based on what Jack was saying, it looks like we're looking at this and going, okay, properties and principles of matter and energy. Students will be able to,
And we come up with a performance that they would be able to do to demonstrate their knowledge. And then the other thing you've got to remember when you're reading this is this is by the end of 12th grade. So there's 13 years of schooling here that we can back this off of. That's not saying high school biology should be doing all these things. It's saying by the end of 12th grade, they should have it.
As much as possible by the end of 10th grade. Is that the required course?
Well, not everybody, but yes, you know.
The course exam could be it's whenever biology is.
Yeah.
So for some districts it's junior year and some it's freshman year.
That's right, biology.
Can I ask a process question?
Sure.
Okay, so let's just pick one. I'll pick a short one for science people. I read like their literature. Identify reactants and products in a chemical equation. So we're supposed to make sure that somebody graduating in 12th grade from Missouri high school can do what with that? What is the action item there that they can do? Page 32, section 1, section A, I.
I'm just going to offer this one out. Develop and use a model to describe how the total number of atoms does not change in a chemical reaction and thus mass is conserved.
And how they are rearranged.
And how they are rearranged.
So that's a question,
That's a performance expectation.
so that they can answer that question
The-
depending on
the more visual would be the learner will be able to dissolve sucrose in water, react it with Benedict's reagent, and identify.
I was offering sulfuric acid just because it's more fun, but whatever.
All right, science teachers.
But In reality, it's, can you pour two things in a beaker and you either know what they were or what they can. And even if I'm just telling them what it is, they should be able to recognize the answer when told. So that they know that the same atoms are still present, but they're not all bonded to the same things anymore. And within a certain level of consistency, they can identify both what went in and the products that were generated.
So when we
And they could do that on paper, or they could do it physically in a.
So I get that. So when we're doing given the format that we agreed to adopt, the performance format, so we would put in, I don't have it in front of me, but we would put in expectation, performance under a heading, and that becomes the expectation under the strand of whatever the one of the 8 strands we're going to pick.
And I would offer many of our performances.
That's my question. Which strand would that apply to?
Currently strand 1.
Biology?
No.
What?
Strand 1 is.
It's under strand 1, and that's property.
and principles.
Matter of
Yeah.
energy.
Okay.
This is really strand 1.
Okay.
It can be incorporated into biology, and that's the thing, any of the strands could be incorporated into biology. And that's kind of the thing, they're all such.
Yes, you kind of need to, even though we have the strands, you do need to get rid of some of the silos that we've kind of got going on here. Because I can teach about matter and energy while I'm teaching biology. Well, yeah, you should. Because if not, once again, that starts putting holes and pieces and parts.
Biology is
to
the
their
study
education.
of energy accumulation, transfer, and reorganization.
So if that becomes under strand 1, then we'll have to identify additional ones, or does that satisfy everything that was under the paragraph that you all were discussing?
I stepped out, I
Oh,
missed a portion.
Comment about the model,
We
the
give us
performance
some.
expectation? No, I don't think so. But
It would probably encompass all that, but we're going to incorporate other
yeah.
blocks as well, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing it right, it should blend the earth science with biology. There should be some blending with the physical science with biology. Not a lot, but there should be some there because, once again, it's not a silo. Well, it's just not a silo.
Right, and Dennis is an agricultural person. He uses a lot of biology, but he also needs earth science and the chemistry. I mean, it all is part of his day-to-day operations, and that's really what we're trying to do is to have someone come out ready to go to work in whether it's a rural or an urban job or move on to college, the higher ed.
What are we trying to put together our first? I'm sorry, just in stepping out for those few minutes, I feel.
Well, I wasn't really trying to put together our first. I was just trying to structurally understand
what we have,
how we put together our first, not what it is, but how we put that together. So we have a
would this be a
strand.
good time to show you what we have together as power standards that looks similar to what Sandy has?
I don't know the rest of the people, but
Fired up. I mean, I
I
really,
things that are not reinventing.
in some of these early meetings, I know we want to get like setting standards, but I think the process of how we're going to stack them, how we're going to rate them, how they're going to be interwoven or standalone, or I think it's as important as anything we're going to do in this first couple of meetings.
And actually, I think it's more important because if we don't have that foundation, then we're just going to.
Well, I think if we see some ideas of the numbers between now and Thursday.
Okay, now, this is something actually I spent a lot of time helping work on because this was part of our vertical curriculum alignment from K-12. And we started out with the courses, as far as the high school level, we started out with biology since it was the tested subject area. And then we started adding in our other required courses, and then we started adding in our elective courses. I don't know how many times we've submitted it, but they still have never put them all up online. So when you look at this, here's our science standards grid. We have deconstructed standards, kid-friendly objectives, and power standards. And what I'm going to show you are the power standards because they're the general terms that we can start breaking down a little bit more. And we've got these K through 8, and then the high school level, as you guys see here, I'm going to show you Biology 1, and the only other ones that we have up there right now are freshwater ecology, physics first, and anatomy and physiology. But we do have these for chemistry. I serve as the chemistry content team leader. We've submitted them about 3 or 4 times. I don't know why they're not on here. We also have them for forensic science and some of our other courses. So we started out, when we started this process, so you guys can kind of walk, we started by putting together what we call power standards. Basic things, and I'll make this bigger so you guys can see this, basic things that we think our biology students should know when they leave our classroom. Students will be able to analyze the scientific inquiry process as related to form and function of living things. And that one is understood. We set it out as a separate power standard, but we understood that that would be incorporated in all areas. So we did separate it out. Students will differentiate between form and function of cells. That's a very general term, but gives us the leeway to start breaking it down. Students will analyze how the flow of energy applies to living things in their environment. And we added specifically, that's where we would put in photosynthesis and cellular respiration, knowing that that was a tested item. You guys can see that even though we don't want to teach to the test, we also know what we're going to be assessed over, and so we make sure that those are things that we have put in our curriculum. Because this by no means is a complete list of everything we teach. We delve into these quite deep. Students will distinguish between mitosis and meiosis as it relates to reproduction and cell division. Students will analyze how traits are inherited and passed from generation to generation. Students will analyze the concept of natural selection as it applies to the theory of evolution. And students will examine how ecological interactions are affected by biotic and abiotic factors such as chemical cycling, symbiotic interactions, food webs, and human activities. Is that similar to what you were talking about, or is that not at all?
Well, those are objectives.
Right.
But they're not performance.
Right, but that's
so
what
that would still be the challenge with this is to take these and change them into something that defines how a student will demonstrate they know the difference between the form and function of cells.
Right.
Is that something that we want to set as a state standard, or is that something that local districts and teachers ought to be able to determine for themselves?
I really think just looking at that and knowing the difference between performance events, I don't know if I'm going to be able to sit here and say that that's something that I can create a performance event for a biology teacher. I think a group of biology teachers need to sit down and create performance events that will be able to measure that standard. And so I look at it as
performance expectations, though. And that's what this document does.
Right.
I mean, I can look through here and find something that would incorporate that piece of knowledge.
right.
But this is what Jack was talking about, was starting with a student will be able to, starting with these objectives and then breaking down and putting our performance expectations with them.
Well, I mean, to me, we have plenty of documents that have everything broken down. I mean, whether we use this, whether we use that, whether we use the current GLE grade column. My thing is whether, I mean, with the exception of the NGSS, because they already have those performance expectations written, whatever we choose, we're going to have to write something for it. And quite frankly, that is not an easy job in any shape or form.
Yeah, we were talking at lunch, no matter what standard you pick, and I can just know what this process was. It was 200 people, 2 years to write. I think we're, we can't take regular standards and make them all performance events. I don't think.
Performance expectations.
Thank you. Motion, movement.
Standards, expectations, whatever.
Stuff.
Yes.
We incorporate the highly technical term stuff.
So we either need to,
We need to pick some objectives.
well, we gotta start somewhere, but my point is the following. I do feel very strongly about performance expectations. I feel very, 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 very strongly about it, that is the better way to go. But I'm also smart enough to know that I don't have that ability to sit, I mean, I can sit and write them, but, you know. We have a group of people who have vetted out these. So if we are going to use something like this, then I don't care how we go about it. I mean, I'm fine with the 12th grade and going back down. I'm fine with you know, starting with an objective somewhere and looking at the performance expectations that are related to it. If we don't like them, then maybe at that point we work on creating something on our own. But, you know, until then, I mean, it's like that we're wanting everything to do this, but that performance expectation piece is going to stick us. That's just all there is to it. Either we accept or find what works here and modify, or we write on our own, but we just got to take a starting point with it.
That's what they expect us to write on our board every day. We should have a kid from range up on our board every single day.
Kids will just look
It's
at
on our
it.
walkthrough evaluation.
I know. Yeah. No, they can't say anything. Whereas, and my administrator has a homing signal on the one kid that didn't pay attention to me explaining it.
Stick it. Okay, and again, I'm going to ask a series of maybe stupid questions, but I don't think, or at least I hope, that the expectation is that we freehand write whatever the set of expectations are. Because you're right, it would take probably us more than 2 years to do that. And I have no problem stealing a perfectly good wheel rather than chiseling out one from scratch if I don't have to. I was under the impression, however, that we were going to look at whatever the performance standard that we wanted and match that up against the 3 different set of expectations, and we were going to pick almost automatically anything that lined up bing, bing, bing across the board, and then, you know, or even bing, bing, and then X across the board. But then if there was something that was completely, we had 3 different opinions on what that expectation was, then we were going to have to hammer those out.
So,
But I mean, I guess what I'm saying is if CLE, NextGen in Massachusetts, so let's say we're talking about X, stuff, and NextGen says stuff is X, and Massachusetts says stuff is X, and CLE says stuff is X. Well, and I'm gonna get crazy with y'all, but you know, the Bible says there are debatable things and undebatable things. I would think that would become an undebatable thing if all 3 agree. So we just throw that onto the list and we move on to the next one.
So, hang on a second. Let me make certain that I'm following along, because, you know, occasionally my brain doesn't pay attention. So what you're wanting is the learning standard, learning expectation. Learning expectation. We figure out those first, and then we figure out the performance from there. What students should be able to do to demonstrate they have it. That's what you're saying?
I thought that's what we agreed, but we weren't going to we weren't going to sit around and come up with them. We were going to use one of the 3 sources to come up with a new list.
And then, but my point on that is
The only one with performance expectations.
Is next.
NextGen.
So we would have to write a performance expectation for the other ones.
Well,
Is what you're saying.
If you didn't select it.
If you don't like NextGen, you want to pick something different.
bottom line, there's probably 80% overlap between these 3 documents for the concepts that they cover. So it really doesn't matter to me.
Content isn't the problem.
No.
Exactly. So it doesn't matter which one you want to pick. You can, solutions, chemical solutions or chemical solutions or chemical solutions.
we're so stuck on where they came from, and some people have a hard time with going to GSS, but if you cut these into strips and put them all in a pile, content is content, and then butcher it, rip it apart, make it your content, but I think that would go a lot faster than trying to mesh or something like that.
Because, I mean, Newton's laws are Newton's laws are Newton's laws. And I guarantee you they're in the Massachusetts document, they're in ours, they're in
Right.
the GSF.
So, I mean, I guess there has to be a difference, or they just don't be the
Or
same.
they wouldn't be changing.
It's a semantic difference, it's wording, it's maybe one says differentiate
Well, in this
between the
case,
two.
it's
And
performance event versus list of accessible.
exactly, another one may say identify situations, but I still have to teach Newton's laws in order for them to do it.
I guess I'm just looking at this one, and this is the one I was sitting here. Develop and use a model, this is in GSS. Develop and use a model to describe how the total number of atoms does not change in a chemical reaction and thus mass is conserved. That's the big law of conservation of matter that everybody thinks is important a lot. Is there anything controversial? I think if we look at it that way, does anybody have a problem with the students knowing the law of conservation of matter? No. And I don't think we'll see a big difference. So to me, that seems like one's like, okay, check. Move on to the next one. There will be some that I think will be controversial. There's some that I don't even know. There's some that we want to try to trim. We don't know what those are.
Oh, there's one on the embryonic
Yes,
differences.
I don't know how to do that. Yeah.
There's one in there that we read, and I said, it'll take a whole quarter to do this, and everybody went, well, what are you talking about?
Right.
Well, so we're made to.
So there are some that I think different people will say get rid of it. There's some that that's how it is. Yeah, that one we want.
You can change my paragraph.
Yeah, the embryonic, the one on showing that all embryos are basically the same and they diverge from there.
Yeah.
Will you use it? Share.
That's Hagel's stuff.
It's a line of evidence for the commonality.
Our biology teachers are like, we do it, and I said, she goes, I do it, and I said, go right ahead, because when I look at it, to teach kids to fully understand how to do it,
They love it too.
Share.
yes, because we're in a loss, we're reading it.
Right.
But
So,
that's-
and this brings me, I think, what is in essence one of the central debates, this conversation right here. So she's doing it, you're not doing it. She says it's great, you're like, I don't get the point.
Yeah, there's going to be some.
And so, and I know there's the local control and the school boards and teachers and listen, I'm a local control fan, so I'm fighting in favor of that. But from our standpoint, maybe we have to answer that question.
Yeah.
I mean, you see what I'm saying?
But-
So, one isn't necessarily, that's not true and yours is
Right.
not true. They're both true. But is it important enough to put in? Is it not important
And
enough
that's
to take
why I
out?
think if we go one by one, some of these, I bet 80% of them we're all going to say, yeah. Then there's going to be those, and then let's stop debate, axis, and change it.
And that's the point that we made yesterday that I kept going back to. You gotta have professional development in order to make certain all teachers understand, because that's the one I don't get from those schools.
And sort of, Jessica, this is a question that came up to me yesterday, and I don't know. I mean, I couldn't even begin to answer this. So, I know that with Common Core, which I know is a big bugaboo in the room, but with Common Core, I mean, I know that some districts who have adopted Common Core, and some haven't. But the ones that have spent now time and effort with professional development. Now, historically, we've changed standards about every 4 or 5 years, so I'm not really that worried about it. But how do we model, well, we don't, how do you model professional development for these new standards?
Would you point to?
Those two.
Well,
They're going to answer that question more than.
well, not really.
Actually, it's all.
No, it's mostly local professional
Desi
development.
doesn't do it from D.
No, that would be these two.
The Centers for Regional Professional Development, Centers for Regional Professional Development, set of trainings and stuff off the board. And it's not just the districts have adopted them, it's that they haven't adopted them, they're moving toward them. And so all districts, because of the criteria that have been put in place before, that the new tests are going to be aligned, for 2.5 years have been aligning with Common Core. They've been studying them, researching them, seeing what they are, seeing how it affects them, doing professional development at the building level, levels, at the district levels, going to regional trainings, going to national trainings on it. Districts have been moving statewide towards the Common Core because our testing was changing. And on how we were going to be analyzed through our annual performance reports were going to be based on the Smarter Balanced Consortium test. And so we have to stay in front of it. You're right, and we knew that going in, but when you're being told 2 years out, this way you're going to be judged.
I'm not blaming the school districts. I mean, unfortunately, it just wasn't, we're everything at Common Core from an education standpoint, from a budgetary and policy standpoint, it was incredibly important. Sorry. Well, I mean, here's the thing. From a budget standpoint, we asked this question all session long, and the legislators, where do you want the $15 to $20 million for the money that's getting paid to the testing consortium? Which education bucket do you want to take it out of? Because there isn't more money. So who suffers for a testing?
I think it's more the testing.
No, I know.
Budget than the standard.
Yeah, right. No, I'm saying from a policy standpoint, not an education standard standpoint. I mean, I have my own problems with some of the Common Core stuff, but I'm not in that group, so I'm not worried.
Well, I don't think anybody's going to create a document ever that's going to make 100% of the public happy.
Most of the testing is going to be done on computing.
The new ones.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
Well, the school district can afford to buy the.
so that's probably going to
They
happen.
I got grants.
So, we as a local
Most
school
of the
district.
school districts do not have the technology. We, as big and as much money as Camdenton school districts have, education is always behind in technology, but we're even farther behind. The technology is not there. It is not there for our district, and we're a big district. It's not there.
I think it depends on how you organize the testing, using the tools that you have.
Yes, but you also cannot shut down your school system for 6 weeks to get all the testing done.
Which is what we do.
And Chris, really what it ends up doing is it ends up taking away from class instruction time for testing. I know our school, we have 4 weeks. I think it's 4 weeks. Anyway, that we do testing, and that's.
Yeah, but that's for a portion of the day. It might be for 90 minutes of that day.
Chris, are we still,
Which
are we way off track here?
Yes.
We got off track. It's my fault. Chris
Mine is on the second
The
off
train
our
went
wheel.
like this.
We're not flat on one side.
It's my fault. I was curious about somebody mentioned about that, and that's why I was.
Well, I'm curious,
It's
this
my fault.
wasn't up on the board here, I'm curious.
I wasn't trying to do it.
Jack asked me to type something in a Word document. Yeah, there it is.
It's just taking the document that we were looking at a minute ago, the second item in under life science, and turning it into something that you can have as performance. It indicates what needs to be completed in the classroom, what the learner should be able to do at the end of their biology course, and it still gives the instructor enough room to work on that. And I didn't play with my grammar a lot. I kind of did that in a hurry. So.
And so that would go with the reactants in front?
No, number 2 down here. She's not.
Energy for most living organisms is derived ultimately from the sun. And then it has it has 2 sub parts there.
I think if you take a look at this, you can turn most of these into performance.
That's the
Which ones are we looking at?
Page 32, bottom of the page, big early tumor.
This right here.
Energy of most living organisms derived ultimately from the sun.
So you have that for high school elementary, Johnson has that for
Yes, and a lot of these are repetitive.
They are.
And I think that's a positive.
Well, we do just the minor stuff,
and then high school we.
And so
we did an
the
ACT
level of
in
the
high
model
school.
that's constructed by the 8th grade doesn't have to be the same as what a high school student should be able to do.
This is your foundation. That's what I tell them. This is your foundation for high
Yes.
school and college.
When I teach general chemistry, it's everything they're ever going to get when they get their PhD in chemistry. Just they're going to come back to it, spend multiple semesters studying the same content. And that's the same thing that we're doing here. if we try to find what we think the learners should, and that one probably needs a little bit more.
No, but I'd like to do it from top down. This
Yeah.
is what you need for
When they graduate, this is what you should have when you're going just out to be in, because one of my passions is I teach mostly non-majors, and it's my one chance to improve science literacy. So that when they're sitting up at 2 in the morning because they couldn't sleep and the commercial for super oxygenated water comes on, they don't spend their money on it. But they do. But you can't put any more oxygenated water. I'm sorry, folks. There are physical restraints to it, despite what the salesman says.
I'm talking real world.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing with the UVB blockers on the sunglasses. Plastic lens is very efficient blocking UV. You really don't need an extra coating. But you can spend $5 more for the glasses right next to it. But my idea is that when our students leave high school, they should have been introduced to the basic tenets of science so that they are good science consumers. Because when we have people going to the polls and voting, those who have had formal training in science, while we show up in high percentages, we are not the dominant voting bloc. So those of us as instructors, this is our chance to try and help them be good consumers. When there's things going on in the newspaper, and worst of all, the stuff that we get sold, that's snake oil medicine. The snake oil medicine man is still alive and well, among other things. And so if we don't want to use pre-existing performance standards, let's take a look at this document, which was put by the Board of Higher Education, and turn them into performance. Just give us a start and get us moving. And when we go home and do our homework, we can add, subtract, and maybe find some other things.
For biology, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Can you remind me again, why would we start and rewrite our homework as opposed to starting with something that was vetted?
That's what I'm looking for, is the biology ones for the next generation.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for, see if we can answer.
Yeah.
It's the LS.
Yes, it's the LS ones. It's on page 90 of 103.
I mean, and nothing wrong with your ability to write a performance expectation, or any of our abilities to write a performance expectation. But there's a jump here between what we write and what goes on in the classroom. And you've got to look at wording. You've got to look at a lot of things.
I don't disagree with you.
And so that's why I'm much more comfortable looking at something that's already been vetted a little bit and maybe seeing if we can improve that. As
Sandy, it's on the, depending on if you're looking at middle or high school would be on, it talks about cycling of nutrients and it's on 92, and then middle school 63. Say that again?
Did you know?
Oh, it's a, then we get energy from the sun.
Is that LS1 or LS2?
It is
LS2.
Yes, LS2.
Yes, and it's also true that you want stuff that's already come in, looked at, and thought over, and
I agree, but I was under the impression that if we were looking at the 3 different ones, those all 3 had that. They're just formatted differently. In fact, all have been.
I would tell you the Missouri GLEs haven't received the extensive review work that this document had. That's
The only thing I'd say about the other 3 is the Massachusetts and the Missouri don't have the performance expectation, they only have the learning standards. They have the objectives, but not the performance expectations. And we keep saying we want to use performance expectations. It's just not fair. I mean, we can compare all three of them all day long to make sure that we have an agreement on content, but it's not going to give us the performance expectations. The only one that will do that for us is the NGSS. Without us rewriting all. 11, there was 11. If we just based it on the number, like what Jack wrote that one for, there's 11 just for biology.
Some of those would be hard to write.
Yeah, you have to write stuff.
I picked an easy one. I
Right.
was
Well, so minimum of 11.
yeah, minimum of 11. I did cherry pick.
Well, they've got a performance one in the high school on page 85. Talks about developing a model to illustrate the role of photosynthesis in the state of respiration and among the biosphere.
LS15.
LS 1.5, LS 2.5 is the one she read.
Yeah, I would say that's
1.5 is light energy. So
So
they're
you have
broken in.
those, you have those two that you could.
And technically we could combine them.
Which,
You know, in high school,
High school.
which is what Susan's argument is, that somebody else already wrote it, even though I just did it.
With statements and examples.
There's your content.
And if you look at the junior high, or the 8th grade, it's in there, I know.
It is.
So now you have a crosswalk from college to high school to middle school, and I don't know what 5th grade is.
I don't think this grade looks at
And then look
the
at
energy, they look at the conservation of matter.
well, they do, there is a statement on there about Bay, well, not Bay, but minor about all ecosystems, about all food webs should start with the sun.
And then you have the one in 3rd grade, plants. I wonder if they cover anything with stuff.
I think in 3rd grade, they learn that all the energy of photosynthesis and all that comes from the sun. I think it's when they make food webs. They don't go deep, but, you know.
So they're getting it.
They're looking at, with the plants, in the NGSS, they're looking at where does the mass of the plant come from.
There's a big misconception that it comes from the soil. Even as the high school kids, they think that tree gets its stuff from the soil, not the sun.
Okay, so now for the college, it starts at the 2nd and 3rd grade level and just that's on and that's on and that's on and that's on. So we could backwrite it. To the 6th grade.
So would it work to take the college entry things and to look at the things that they say they want the kids to know, and to look and say, okay, are these things, because it's not a performance standard, we have to look at the core ideas, go through and say, okay, are all these core ideas covered? And if they are, then we've covered this material. And see, is anything missing?
Or is there anything extra?
Yeah.
And what core ideas are you looking at?
On the core ideas
Gotcha,
under
okay.
next gen.
Oh, you mean the lower box?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, because since these aren't written as performance
Right.
standards, we could look and see, this is gonna match up better with the core ideas and say, are all the core ideas that they say they want kids to come out knowing, are they all covered
There.
with here?
So, just so I understand what you want to do, so we want to take the college level right now, these blocks, and see where they fit within next year. And and then see, so if those match, however they match up, then we're still gonna have to go through, the others, but what we're asking to do is just go through one at a time rather than compare the three at a time.
I think if you wanted to compare the three at a time, you pull your hair out with independent and similar to what we did.
It's too difficult.
And because these things are so interwoven, the flow of the creators is not going to be consistent. And that's what we ran into this morning.
Right.
It's not that the material was different, but the flow of how it was put pen to paper is just enough different that you find yourself kind of having to hop. And it
starts frustration quickly.
Well, and you end up basically trying to pick all the apples off the tree and you're not sure if you've got them all. So one document at a time is probably more constructive. And if we're going to start at the end product, then the document with the college expectations is probably as good a thing as any.
So if we went through and since we've got our format being here, and we go through our life sciences, the very first thing here, matters composed of atoms and chemical reactions, or look for these things, and like at the bottom says CAI, maybe on here if we find that we could write CAI number something beside it, and then we would know that's where that got covered.
I know we seem to like doing things as a big group, but if we're looking to make certain stuff is covered, couldn't we have an earth science group, a life science group, and a physical science group, and we go through and check and circle and highlight whatever needs to be done so we know if it's covered or not between the college document and the NGSS DCI column. And then we can come back and we can say, these we believe are covered, these stick out. We need to figure out what we're going to do with this.
Okay, for this step, that would be good and very effective. Because we're not deciding anything of that, but we're just saying, comparatively, is it all covered?
Yeah. And if it's not, then we can decide as a group what we're going to do.
And also there's the Massachusetts definition of ecology.
Or our kids aren't in the state of Missouri ever, so we'll just look at Missouri.
Some of them never left the county they live in.
Okay.
So are we going to break up then into?
Well, tell you what, normally you guys are ready for an after lunch break. When we come back from lunch, let's talk about how that works in three different dynamics and how much time that takes. So think about this over the break. Think about, if you want to break into groups, I'm not inherently opposed to it. How we divide up those groups then. How much of a chunk of subject matter and when are we going to report those? Because now we're going to deviate from the plan we created yesterday, which we had by consensus. So if we're going to deviate from the plan, we need to really make sure we've thought through the pieces of that and what that looks like.
Just like in the classroom, we had our plan. We started down the plan. It wasn't working. We formatively assessed it, and now we're reevaluating.
Hey, you can't change plans if you don't have a plan. I get the concept. Trust me. I've moved down
We're
the
doing
plan.
a reteaching moment.
I'm not saying no. I'm not even objecting. I'm not even objecting. I believe in clarity so that we all understand what we're talking about. So that there's no one who comes back and says, well, I thought we agreed the other day to do this. Well, now we're talking about changing the plan.
We agreed to a bad idea, so we're agreeing to a new.
I think it would be important if we're going to break into groups to make sure that we do have like a teacher on each group, because some of the things.
Actually, I was worried about just the opposite problem. I didn't want all teachers on one group. That was actually my concern. I wasn't worried about not having a teacher on a group. I was worried about not having only teachers on a group. So I want to know my only concern.
Make sure you've got a teacher and a parent in each group or something.
All right, so we're almost quarter till. when we take a break, come back, and we can discuss how, and what the expectations are by the offenders.
Is this something that we're going to do, because by the time we get back, it's going to be 2, it means we're going to have 1 hour left. Is this something that we may do between this meeting and our next?
Well, I would think once we decide how, then we can pick the groups, and then between now and October the 2nd, you guys can telephone, Twitter, text, I don't care, meet on your own.
I'm probably going to leave by the time we get back from our break, so will you just like let me know what thing you assigned me to, and will we have a way to contact, so I'll know like.
Yeah, it was, I didn't get to it last night. I'm going to email, or one of us will email you everybody's contact information we agreed to yesterday.
So if you tell me I'm gonna be looking over this little piece here, or let me know I've been assigned to Jack's group, and so I can get over to Jack if I need to before next meeting if I have a question or something. Okay.
I wouldn't want to sleep.
I just, if I have.
Despite whatever Patricia tells me.
I guess if I have a question between, if whoever my teacher is also looking at it, I can.
Well, and two, let's take a break and then think about what, think about what group Jack wants to lead, or Shelley, if you want to pick a group to lead, whatever. But just think about, we can talk about it, because not everybody can do the same thing and be all on the same, if you want to do that.
Yes.
So are you breaking this into light and physical? Are you breaking it into big chunks, or are we still doing that?
No idea.
Just copy that, so I can't pick a group.
I have no idea.
Okay, you get an extra few minutes to.
I know, that's like just walking around.
Oh, thank you.
I understand.
Whatever group it is that proposed that amendment has got it on the side. Oh, they're not even going to put any more in.
Well, one group is, there's still other groups that are still backing it, and still on the, I just typed into Google CAI progress report. And then it came up. No, it's not, it's on the Department of Higher Education.
So is it called the Curriculum Alignment Initiative?
Yep.
Yes.
Good luck. Excuse me.
I mean, I'm just making a general observation. I don't have any trouble with this.
Mm-hmm.
So if you start getting over here and this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
probably know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. I do.
So when we come up with standards and say you approve them, do the districts, all of the districts in Missouri get to write their own assessments and prepare their own curriculum to meet those standards? What's SBAC for? What's SBAC? The testing consortium,
Yeah.
what's their role in these new standards?
That's how this.
Those are the places where we're
this is where it's all heading.
We're gonna first look to see.
And eventually science is going to be
We still
incorporated.
have to.
The Missouri document.
It is.
Well, no, I'm just,
The
there has
higher
to
ed
be
document.
the
And then
standardized test for
And
basis
then
of
where there's
comparison.
differences,
Are
we're
you
gonna
all
discuss,
going to
and then
agree
on the
with-
pieces of,
We will have to.
even,
yes.
even when we come up with, okay, here's our list, then we're gonna
No.
discuss that kind of stuff.
No, this group is not designed for creating that system.
Yeah, oh, I know, I figured,
We've never
I figured.
do that, even at the state.
And that's all right,
the state
because
assessment,
you can,
we
you're gonna
didn't
have
do
your
that.
side, and I'll have
I
my
mean,
side.
like
and
the
we'll have
EOCs and the math tests, we didn't have any say in that.
Mm-hmm.
But you're gonna have to say in this, these
Yes.
assessments that go with
Yeah. Yeah. There were educator panels created for all these assessments.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily true. I mean, I have started out trying.
Well, our currently, our
And then-
teacher
and then in-
evaluations,
in
our
this
district
area, when-
evaluations are, because that's,
if we decide
that's
on
what
these,
your MSIP
it
and your.
doesn't mean we're gonna take this as is.
APR.
This might be a time where we write our own
Yes,
performance
teachers' evaluations are
expectation,
tied to it.
or
but
we edit
doesn't
this to
state
where it
specific
is.
Tied to it.
I just don't understand how you can't help create the.
Why
It
not
really
just
is.
teach
Because
And that-
you'll get to that, like, districts will help.
There's gonna be educators involved in that process, yes. It's always has to be. They bring it out to
It's not
educated
every
basis.
single
Just
thing.
like this,
Good
this
enough.
panel, all
Or they go find
created, but
information or
they'll do the
something.
same thing with assessments.
You know,
They'll have
we'll-
teachers and professionals everywhere that sit down and create the
With some of
assessments.
this, yes, I agree.
That's the process.
And
that's been done.
sometimes I would look at you and I'm gonna tell you that sometimes learning what the opposition is.
So that's the problem.
Uh-huh.
That's kind of where, once you find a crack in something,
Mhm.
that's when we want to really start, because we start looking and you start process this stuff. Because you say, well, you know, if I think this, I can do this. If I think this over here, I can do something different.
Mhm.
And it really opens you up. I mean, it just keeps you,
Yeah.
that's what's kept me reading books. Turning to, you know, not having a computer.
Yeah.
Go away from the computer.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah, well, that's like I mentioned about the Fordham, you know, it's, the methodology isn't bad, and it's not necessarily one I agree with, but that doesn't mean I don't read it. Just because if I'm gonna construct an argument, sometimes I can do what everybody else is gonna be saying, so I can better defend myself. And on some of these, you know, while you may on the surface not agree with it, sometimes even learning that piece of it isn't gonna damage anything. You know, change, or we change the performance expectation to where learning the science is all right, but we're just not using the situation to teach it. You see what I'm saying?
You ever seen that commercial with the dog?
NGSS.
It's Mrs. Dave. I don't like the little dog. Trying to jump about it, keep up with Dr. Langford.
Here are the copies of the GLEs. It's 164 page document. I hope everybody reads it every word. But I've done my due diligence. You are very welcome.
The copy that I already have read everywhere, have you talked to certain people?
Massachusetts.
Oh, the Massachusetts one? I thought you were talking about ours.
Oh, no, I will tell you, having talked to 17 years of that military are one which are my standards. Yeah, I know those are, of course, yeah.
3.2.
No, I totally get it. So,
3.2 AP.
No, I could do the GLEs and CLEs. And we were just starting to push that. This is the one that I told you that it was just very fun. And then, so now you know the dates and the message. They didn't like
Hey, how you holding up? I'm fine. Can I ask you a question real quick? So, like, I know you're like a stenographer, so are we gonna be able to get a copy of notes just to refresh everyone's mind so we can send it out to everybody as it? And I don't need it just for me. Just treat it like a meeting.
No, we're just kind of, raw notes. I'm trying to or it would be CH,
Yeah, and when you can put a little legend on there so people know who you're talking about.
I did at the very
I just want to be good for everybody to, if they want to be able to go back for.
Sure. I pulled the notes from yesterday and the notes. Yeah, I'm happy to do so. I was going to ask you, where in Lansing do you live?
I live in Baldwin.
Oh, you live in Baldwin. Okay, so
my son goes to Preston.
Oh, okay. I know that because we do Science Olympiad. So Science Olympiad.
My son was upset that I wasn't discussion. He told me to tell his lawyer common conflict because they have to do it hard. There's much simpler ways to do it.
You know what? Kids are the ones that inspire me. I find that awesome.
I just want to say, here's what I come to. Because my kids are all in very good education. My daughter's in college, just for the college. Smart as good. I mean, strong as good. Smart as best. Both is best.
Very good, yeah. Very good.
Like blonde for you.
Yeah, no, I understand. Window, and then open another window. So, thank you very much. I'm very glad that you were able to get it all together. Yeah, so we share our events.
There's more than
Yeah,
people.
that's the GL, or yeah, the CLEs.
20 years ago, they were guy at Windsor. Technology.
You know who has extras?
Oh, yeah. All kinds.
Because I sat in on the construction iron.
Solar program.
Yesterday, this was a fire. I thought about it, I said,
Had fun.
Good luck to y'all.
Chairs for the renewal of there.
parts and sold and sales, and then we hold the
Well, that's
We'll probably go on at the same time. I'll give you a start.
I know, but they went from something that was really working to something that didn't change.
Let me find my copy of the bill.
And that's a
Retirement.
See, you got, that's it. I don't know where I'm getting, I don't know how I work. You know, I'm getting, there's no pay for this, you know, I have a couple of things I try to pay. I mean, this I'm just here. I like having one side.
I mean, and again, I don't know, I don't have an agenda to that, to the extent, I haven't read this. Never read it. I don't have the advantage of free knowledge. Why should I? Does that make sense?
They don't.
Trust me, it's something that they say, this is better. I didn't know anything about this, but you guys. You guys told me, and I was like,
I'm finding the higher order species. Quite a I'm going to turn all this or start something. It started out they are color that is silver.
Yes.
Yeah, we tried it.
Oh, there we go. The worst one I've ever
Well, that's what it means. They ask for
doing a little bit different stuff. We can spar with each other, we can make fun of each other, or we can ask
as all of my paths, education has been
I feel the wording that is.
Actually, all three of my brothers here all four of them, my mom went over and told her that she was at the mom my mom's side, all four actually, I've asked show people it was today. First thing I can do I have a work this one It is.
And has to live in the rolled up as one person.
Put it on. You haven't got it? It's a different version. And I didn't even realize I was doing it. So with various people coming through, me and my son, let it go.
They don't have to get in there.
I had a couple of
listening to the it just seems like
I got to throw on that. That's what I understand about systems.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. I usually go
right. That's right. Or minimal. You use them minimal, not like.
My final exam on my box is the result of
That ornament, I've seen that stuff before.
but I turned it into the final test. Because I give them the recipe for a 125, I make them bring in their own container. Oh darn, it's not the right size, you have to change the recipe. And then, oh gee, I mixed the wrong concentration. You have to go to this. I mean, just and finding in, and then it's also because the last step you ask to drive the pH down back up, otherwise it forms the silver azide explosives.
Yeah.
And so that gets their attention, but you can also follow how well they follow procedures with pH, because you got to go pH down, pH back up.
We make kites in my room, and the directions we give them are for like a 6.5-inch straw, and I give them 10-inch straws. And I go, so what are you going to do about this? You know, and there's lots of different ways, and I make them come up with 3 different ways to how you can fix the situation, you know. And so they take those patterns and they change, you know, they have to do the
ratios.
Oh, yes, big stuff.
All right, let's get back here. So we got just a little bit of time left. Looks like we've got copies of the Massachusetts floating around now, which is good. Okay, so the question at hand is, and I just want to revisit this so we're real clear on what we're doing, not just the next couple of meetings, but really our long-term plan here. So it's been strongly suggested that we you take the performance standards that we have, which is NextGen, and we go through it piece by piece, and break up into groups that reflect. That's all right. I just want to make sure you're hearing me. That reflect the breakouts, whether it's biology or chemistry or however we're breaking that out. And then my assumption then is based on our previous conversations, rather than comparing them 1, 2, 3 side by side, we could go back through CLE. Is that correct? Or is it
Doesn't matter. Just
what one of them?
the Missouri.
We go through the current Missouri expectations, and then in no particular order, then we go through the Massachusetts over the next however long it takes us to do the 3. But the overriding, we have agreed on a format that of course matches NextGen, which is probably why we go through it first. But again, based on my understanding from our conversations over the last 2 days here, that even within NextGen, we're going to have to either consolidate or pare down what exists, and whether we replace it with something that we currently have or something that Massachusetts has is or not.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, whether either or. I'm not dictating.
Well, or we may say, you know what, it's okay, because I'm going to interrupt and kind of maybe slightly correct you. We were going to take the college document and the DCIs off the NextGen and make certain that those were matched up and find where there's maybe something a little more in NextGen that's not in the college document, and maybe we decide to keep it, or vice versa. That maybe something needs to be added.
Right. No, and you're right.
That's what we were going to do. We were going to
I remember physical and life science is the only, I just remember physical and life science.
There's an ERF.
Is there an ERF?
Well, it's part of physicals.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, part of physicals.
I thought we did physical and life science when we developed it. We
Okay,
just had
so-
2 science groups.
So we could still do 3 groups, and we'd just double up on that one. I mean, we'll just look for Earth where we can find it.
Okay, so,
And then I'm also going to make a suggestion on how, just to make it somewhat efficient, hopefully. To me, this is nothing more than a simple, somebody read the one off the college document, whatever the first one is, and then you look at your next gen document and mark, highlight, whatever, if it's there. So check. And then when you're done, you can easily see what's there, what's not there.
okay. How does that sound to everybody else? I don't hear everybody else, I hear one person. How does that sound to everybody else? Ken?
I mean, it's definitely a starting point. I know that, this has been a very long couple of days. And we just got the Massachusetts, and so I know at least I'm gonna be starting to kind of go through theirs. I know we need to start with one, and then, but I think that another important thing we need to do over the next week and a half until we meet again is, everybody needs to really familiarize themselves with all the documents so that we can not, basically so that we're not sitting there shuffling back and forth and not knowing how to maneuver through the documents.
And maybe there's an assignment because nobody could ever be familiar with this.
Just the
Well, the good news is that at least that puts us on a level playing field, because I've been trying to play catch up with you guys.
I actually like next meeting, we're gonna be.
That's not a criticism. It's
No,
just,
no,
yeah.
right. Maybe we can come in with Earth from all 3, and then the next one's a life from all
Well,
3.
maybe your groups are assigned just that
Well, that's
little
true.
piece.
That's true.
So whatever groups we have now for the life, the physical, and we start going through the higher ed and the next gen and check those, then your assignment is during the week and a half is look through the Massachusetts and see where that one lines up, and then when we meet back on Thursday,
Can I say this?
we can report out.
Hold on, go ahead and finish. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, whatever assignment we take away from here, it's gonna have to be small. I'm a working mother of 4 with church responsibilities as well. If we just need to.
I said just that piece.
Right, we need, whatever we do, it has to be small, or else.
Can I take one piece off the table? They've already done a crosswalk between these and the NGSS's.
That's Massachusetts.
They've already done a crosswalk.
Right, these pronouns, it's a pronoun free zone.
But I mean, they've already done the work that we're saying we're gonna do. They've already crosswalked.
Can you share what you shared? So they're getting rid of these.
They're moving the next generation. I like to say national just to the end, but the next generation science, Massachusetts is moving forward. They're adopting it in 15, 16. They're going through the process now.
Well,
So
then that
they're
just
going
makes it so
through
we can
all of that stuff. They've already crosswalked the 2001/2006 to the revised standards.
I know, but I don't wanna,
No, Kim's right, just because they've done it and they've agreed doesn't mean that's what Missouri wants to do.
because.
Right, they crosswalk. Why do we have to crosswalk?
Why would we crosswalk
this?
this when we have their report?
To these, that's right. It's pretty large. It's been downloading the whole time I've been talking.
The actual comparison?
Yeah, it's their crosswalk. It's in.
Okay.
It's organized by current standards and organized by draft revised standards.
So that means,
So we go both ways.
your homework just becomes reviewing your piece on that document.
The crosswalk, right?
Yeah, the crosswalk document.
I was saying, you guys are talking about content. I was just saying at least familiarize yourself with the
Right.
format of Massachusetts as we're maneuvering through. But yes, if that document.
Yeah, there's no reason to know why they did this or how they did this if they've already got a document that crosses the NGS.
So this is we send out.
Yes.
No, it's not
Not
necessarily. But I wouldn't say it's way big. But I like this now. When we email everyone, can you forward them that website to everybody?
It's doe.mass.edu. DOE.education.mass.edu.
Oh, that's just there.
It's Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
It's easy to find.
You have to go through curriculum and instruction and then go to science.
Okay, what was that again? I'm sorry.
DOE.mass.edu.
And then what do you do?
I found it under curriculum and instruction and then through science and technology. And it's a science, technology, engineering, and mathematics STEM.
Oh, yeah.
And they've got resources, draft advice, standards, additional resources. They've got all of that stuff already on the website.
So can we maximize our time and do the other, so maybe we can walk out of here with?
Yeah, so what's the, I mean, because we have a little bit of time left. So what's what are the three groups again?
Earth, physical, and mind.
Life, physical, life, physical. All right, so we have, how many total members we got? One? Well, total. We're missing some more.
We're missing Shelley and Danielle.
Shelley, Danielle, Tony.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We have 13.
All right, so we got 13 divided by 3.
And will we have the other 3 coming in at some point too?
Mr. Chairman, you're going to do all 3, right?
They can be assigned to the smallest group.
Yeah, there you go.
It's the same thing as assigning a lab.
Yeah.
If they show up late, you assign them to the smallest
There's 2
lab.
groups of 4 and a group of 5, so.
All right, so we got life, earth, physical. So who wants to do physical? Bueller?
I'll tell you what, being as Susan and I are one of the only 2 teachers who have taught biology, I will do life because I'm comfortable. I know that just as well as I know chemistry. So it's not answer to your question, what you said, but I am volunteering for life. Science, not
Say
volunteering
something
for
that
life.
might get you in a lot of trouble not answering the question I didn't ask. So life
I will be one of them for life.
will be Clara.
I think we have 6 educators though, so if we do 2, 2, 2.
All right, so who's my second educator for life?
I could be the number 5.
You should do physical, right?
I can do physics and chemistry.
I mean, that's your area.
Well, also biology.
Earth was my certification, I can have it.
So hold on. So let me go back to life. Who's doing life? We're calling out a name.
Clara.
What do you want to do?
Clara, since I know Sam.
Alright, so we got Clara, Sandy. Who else is going to do life?
That means anything to the rest of you, but.
Well, Shelley had already been doing a lot of work, so.
Shelley? Is your parent?
Which one is she?
Dennis.
But then there's Earth.
Oh.
Yeah, Dennis wants Earth.
You know what? You should Earth.
I can, or I can go in the gap.
Right now I have Kim.
I can do any of them.
On Earth I have Kim and Dennis.
We need a teacher.
I heard Mike.
Troy?
Kim and
Physical I have Jack.
I can do physical with you, Jeff.
What do you want to do, Patricia?
I'm trying to think of which one do you need a teacher?
He's got one all.
We've got teachers on all of them.
Several teachers, I guess.
I don't think I'm formally assigned to strictly where.
Oh.
I don't think you can.
And then it's Danielle.
But it's okay.
She's not, she's a mother.
Educator or parent?
Jack and Susan.
It looks like we have parents. Looks like we have
Shelley's
teachers.
parent. She's parent. Shelley's parent.
Dennis Dennis, Kim, Troy, Mike, on Earth.
Where went Miss Shelley?
No, Shelley's on as a parent.
Shelley's
Parent.
as a parent.
The top.
Somebody said she didn't work on something. What was it?
Oh, no, it was just that she's been going through these.
Yeah.
Who was on Earth again?
Eartha, Kim, Dennis, Troy, Patricia.
Mike, Troy, Dennis, and Patricia.
Say that again.
Mike,
Mike.
Troy, Dennis, Patricia.
So I don't have Kim.
Kim said she would.
Put Kim back on there.
And we're gonna have one group of 5. That's our group of 5.
Okay.
Or is that?
That's fine.
All right, and then
So
you're on-
physical.
Jack, Susan, and 2 more people.
I'm sorry, Jack, who?
Jack.
Oh, okay, okay. So there's
I'll put Danielle on there.
And that leaves you and Shelley and Tony unassigned.
Right. All right. So life, I've got Clara and Sandy.
And Shelley.
Okay, so we did a section. Okay, so it's you.
Dennis is on Earth, so it's just me and Tony. So we'll split. Oh, who do I feel like irritating most? Life or physical?
You're stuck on physical because you already have one chair on mine.
Okay.
There you go.
And we can deal with irritating.
So you're
We're like an oyster.
Okay.
We'll make a.
I have on life, I have Clara, Sandy, Shelley, Tony.
He's on physical.
Physical is Jack, Susan, Danielle, and myself. Earth is Mike, Dennis, Troy, Patricia, and Kim. Yes? Did I get everybody correct? And whoever gets added, if we add new nominees fall in, then they'll need to go on live or physical. Because Earth is full. So then your homework assignment is to review next gen in these areas for the next week. And maybe what we'll do at the beginning, see what you think of this idea, because I don't know that we're not going to be able to meet really before then. So maybe the first couple hours of the meeting, we break up into those 3 groups and just have that conversation for a little bit and make sure we have a consensus before we kind of present to the rest of the group. Does that make sense? Fair? Yes?
Do you know when we're going to have the big group meeting?
I don't yet.
Okay.
They're open to it. We're open to it. Now it's just a matter of communicating and making that happen. I think it's great because apparently some of the other groups aren't there yet. So I think we're good on it.
So you have the hybrid document.
I have it digitally.
Okay. So if you have it digitally and I can get the
It's
high
on
school.
it is on Department of IRS.
Is it? Okay.
Let's show everybody what
But you want to do it in the next 30 minutes?
Let's do it.
We don't need but one copy.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting the NGSS
Yeah.
Here.
high school. That
C-O-I.
might right here.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I thought you had seen that.
High school. I have,
I got, she gave me the website.
Can we borrow that back from you? They're not very.
Yeah.
Good. Everything now. No, not the Massachusetts. I will do my copy of the CAI. That's okay, I'll give it back to you. I've got a digital, but I'll have it up right at the point.
Plenty of room.
Are you Earth too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was bullet 3 before, which I already have written down. This is the. Yeah, because now it's bullet 1. That's cases. So that's item. already said it.
So does this anything bad about us and something?
So it's seen as
Remember that during the video session. Before that, there was a there is a part of this. Yeah. No, what I meant by that was I think you're but I also know from experience that managed competition sometimes is better than collaboration. It's good collaboration and collaboration. Because they each have 20% in a competition. There's no room. More people have to produce.
Well, you know what, I mean that, because you still have, you can see some of those basketball teams score on
But then also having somebody to do it. It's a collaboration. And team sport.
We are, I just need to transcribe my notes so that you can have this.
No, don't get me wrong, I'm not.
Let's,
I'm all for collaboration. Yeah. I believe that. I'm not questioning the validity of it. I'm questioning why there isn't anything else. You're telling me there is a 287 science going to be the and I get that. But you couldn't.
So like the National Resource Council you guys back in years 12 different organizations to show that everybody's doing alone. You know what? A billionaire could. You know, Rex Lingo could fund this.
Don't put me into it.
Rex Lingo could fund that.
Sure.
It could fund probably anything with one check that you wouldn't even notice.
I guess what I'm getting at is, should there not be another group of equal signs or with resources? So you're saying this is the sum total of the academic science community?
They brought in a lot of.
But that alone says to me something.
No, let me show you. No, what you're missing.
Is everybody thinking like that?
No, this is what you're missing.
Yeah.
Is that there was so much input,
Right.
and then when it was recognized down, so when the started,
Right. Sure.
So we had where all these things are that we looked at Project 2061, the National Science Standards Program in 1996. So all of the latest research was included in this. And then what happened is you had different groups, different organizations that took time to work with professionals, teachers, parents. Is what was going on here?
Yeah.
So inside, look at
I'm inherently skeptical.
That's why I want to say conservation area.
Only one good option. It's just my nature. I'm inherently skeptical.
You're a natural scientist. You're one of us.
I never accept in 90% of life choices. It's not A or B. There's usually C, D, and F. There's more than two choices.
So, this one you've got good, better, best.
Right. I'm not a naysayer. I'm not all of that. I'm always skeptical. beginning, and somebody's got to continue to in the beginning, they said there were things in the next grade they didn't like or that they wanted to care about. So I want to follow those up. Well, this is the, well, and I'm just being cautious here. So this isn't a situation where we're changing the test standards. We're just increasing the This isn't so this isn't a kind of almost a logical standard. People in a vacuum can't do it. Government is workable.
Maybe.
And I have, you know, what am I going to do? The best thing that I'm seeing that I would learn
Certain absolutely tiny for well, of course. I'm not suggesting you want to run bad.
Right, so to go back to your question though, whether it was really good that you said that, so, you know, we've got schools that now we have more schools.
Okay. It doesn't help us any.
Well, actually, that would result in
I was gonna say, how many kids do you guys have to do this year in front of those other schools doing transfers on that? And this is what we've been transferring. So let's parent is going to be looking at transfer the kid. The parent is going to be which is why we refuse to deny the transfer. We try to pass the transfer. All right, boys and girls, we are at time. I wasn't trying to keep it from getting done.
I can do that stuff if you want to do something else.
That's how I figured.
Okay.
No, I'd like to close that. No.
Okay. You have a good week. You guys next week too.
All right, everyone. We will over the next day or two, we will get you everybody's contact information so you can stay in contact. Claire and I are getting copies of the notes from the last 2 days.
Are we meeting at the same time next Thursday?
I don't think it's any different. So we'll be here at 8 on the 2nd, right? Is it 8 or 9? 9. Sorry, 9. And Claire, we're back here. When? A week here on the 2nd. Outstanding. Thank you all. Oh, I guess the meeting is adjourned.
I never had one, so.
It gives them a start of it, and then all they have to do
this explains why.
You have to stop it first.
Right, how do you stop it, right here?
Uh-huh.